Morning, everybody. What a joyful context to be in this morning. I don't know about you, but it's just been really, really lovely. I always like starting with this image because I don't know about you, but I really love being part of a church where this is what we're about and being part of a group of people where we're just really honest. And the themes of hope and restoration really resonate for me, and I'm sure they do for lots of you here. And this morning we're going to definitely be looking, the clicker isn't working, Darren. Can you click 4 times? This is going to be really challenging because I can't remember anything about the PowerPoint, so it's going to be interesting because I can't remember what's animated and what's not. Can you click 3 times? Because I think there's 3 little lines. There we go, look at that. Today we're going to be looking at very much the reality of life. And just for those of you that like to know what's coming, I'm going to do a bit of talking. Then we're going to do a bit of being still and being contemplative together. Then I might do a little bit of talky, and you might join in with that, and then we'll sing to finish, just so that you know what's coming. And I really felt as I was preparing this morning that I wanted, I really felt God wanted us to have some time this morning to just plug in and spend time with him. And I wanted that to be for everybody. So if you could click on again, that'd be brilliant. I might keep trying this and seeing if it works. So we're obviously talking about the story of Mary and Martha this morning, and lots of us know the headlines of the story. Martha and Mary welcomed Jesus into their home. And Martha was just too busy to spend time with Jesus, and my memory of the story is she was told off because Mary was doing the right thing, Martha was doing the wrong thing, and that's kind of my memory of the story from when I was pretty tiny. I think that was how I remember it. And sorry, can you go back one? Well, no, actually, you can leave it where it is. Because I was just going to say, I am a busy bee, and I don't know how many other busy bees there are in the room. This week for our family has been very busy. We've had transition days, both for my children, and then I've received children on transition. I'm going to fall over this, in my school. We've had Year 6 residential, which was a big event. We've had musical theatre performances. We've had the normal work rhythm. There's been governor meetings. It's just been packed. It's been non-stop for all of us. And then there's just been the normal parenting, family stuff thrown in the mix, which has been interesting and then some. And it's just really, really busy. And I don't know how many of you have busy lives. I think as a culture, potentially, we fill our lives with stuff. And I've always been a full calendar kind of person. And I think that's why when we look at Martha, and when I always think about hearing about the story of Martha, if you could click on, Darren, that would be great. I've always found it really challenging, and in a funny sort of way, I've always felt as though maybe there's a bit of shamefulness attached to that busyness that I feel like I have, because I like being busy. I get a lot of satisfaction from being busy. When I look at my calendar and I try and work out what to take out, I can't work out what to take out. And I realised as I was preparing this morning that if I'm honest, there's probably a bit of shame attached to my busyness that I've always felt because of how this story's always been shared with me and how I've interpreted that story. And I've been on a bit of a journey as I've been looking, and actually today is really about Martha rather than about Mary. And I almost feel as though God's gifted this to me because he's done a bit of work with me as I've looked at who Martha was. And I would really like to take you on that journey with me and share a little bit of what I've learned about Martha. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to zoom out a little bit. And I say we're going to go back. We're not actually going to go back. But Martha is mentioned a few times in the Bible. And you might be sitting there thinking this is the most obvious next bit, but I didn't realise that she's mentioned a couple of times. And one of the other really significant times Martha is mentioned is in the story of the rising of Lazarus, because Mary, Martha and Lazarus were siblings. And I hadn't put 2 and 2 together and realised that they're the same people. And so even though a lot of people scholars think that the story about Lazarus came after, We're actually going to look at it first, because I want us to have a look at who Martha was and what the Bible tells us about who Martha was, and understand the story of Mary and Martha specifically within that context. So we've got the text here, and if I can stay uncroaky, I'm going to read it to you. And I know the text is super tiny, but hopefully you can follow along. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters Mary and Martha. This is the Mary who later poured the expensive perfume on the Lord's feet and wiped them with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was sick. So the two sisters sent a message to Jesus to tell him, "Lord, your dear friend is very sick." But when Jesus heard about it, he said, "Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son will receive glory from this." So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Finally, he said to his disciples, "Let's go back to Judea." But his disciples objected. "Rabbi," they said, "only a few days ago, people in Judea were trying to stone you. Are you going there again?" Jesus replied, "There are 12 hours of daylight every day. During the day, people can walk safely. They can see because they have the light of this world. But at night there is danger of stumbling because they have no light." And then he said, "Our dear friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now I will go and wake him up." The disciples said, "Lord, if he is sleeping, he will soon get better." They thought that Jesus meant Lazarus was simply sleeping, but Jesus meant that Lazarus had died. So he told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sakes I'm glad I wasn't there, for now you will really believe. Come, let's go see him." Thomas, nicknamed the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let's go too and die with Jesus." When Jesus arrived at Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in the grave for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Martha and Mary in their loss. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus told her, "Your brother will rise again." "Yes," Martha said, "he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never ever die. Do you believe this, Martha?" "Yes, Lord," she told him. "I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God." Then she returned to Mary. She called Mary aside from the mourners and told her, "The teacher is here and wants to see you." So Mary immediately went to him. Jesus stayed outside the village at the place where Martha met him. When the people who were at the house consoling Mary saw her leave so hastily, they assumed she was going to Lazarus' grave to weep. So they followed her there. And when Mary arrived, she saw Jesus. She fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if only you'd been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. "Where have you put him?" he asked them. They told him, "Lord, come and see me." And then Jesus wept. The people who were standing nearby said, "See how much he loved him." But some said, "This man healed a blind man. Could he have kept Lazarus from dying?" Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. "Roll the stone aside," Jesus told him. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested, "Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible." Jesus responded, "Didn't I tell you, you would see God's glory if you believe?" So they rolled the stone aside, and then Jesus looked up to heaven and said, "Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me. But I said it out loud for the sake of the people standing here, so that they would believe that you sent me." And then Jesus shouted, "Lazarus, come out." And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. Jesus told them, "Unwrap him and let him go." Now, I don't know, as I say, about you, but I'd never made the connection that that's the same Mary that anointed Jesus' feet with perfume, and I'd never made the same connection that that was the same Mary and Martha who had welcomed into his home in the story we're going to look at in a minute. And I never really understood the context of the story of Mary and Martha with that in mind. And when I read and hear the story about Lazarus' death, I think about how we feel when friends or loved ones die and how we respond to each other. And that story speaks of true, deep friendship. Jesus loved them. Jesus felt their pain. We're not talking about acquaintances. We're not talking about people who knew each other a little bit. We're talking about people who had a deep, meaningful relationship. Mary and Martha and Lazarus were potentially disciples of Jesus as much as the 12. And one of the most striking parts of that passage is the declaration that Martha made that Jesus was the Messiah. And it is one of the clearest in any of the Gospels. Martha. It's only mentioned in that way maybe 3-4 times by 3-4 different people. Peter and John the Baptist are the others. But Martha knew who Jesus was, and she said it so clearly. And I just think that's incredible. Jesus knew what Martha was capable of. He knew the depth of her faith. And there are so many quotes about friendships I could have picked, but I do like this one because I just feel it's really real and it's really honest. And there is something about being in a situation with friends that just makes all the difference. And as I've looked at the relationship between Martha and Jesus, that's what I feel I have seen and understood. And there's so much wisdom in Winnie the Pooh. I mean, I'm always going to go to Winnie the Pooh for quotes about all sorts. And I just feel like you can pick any bit of life and you can Google it and you can say, can you give me a Winnie the Pooh quote? And I love the relationship between Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. And there have been times I've read stories to my children and I've been crying at the end of a book because essentially they've gone hunting for heffalumps and Piglet says, I always feel okay when I'm with you, Pooh. I can take on heffalumps and all sorts. And it's that feeling, it's that sense. And I just thought, I've reflected. As we look at the story of Mary and Martha in a minute, let's understand it in the context of this deep-rooted friendship. So the passage about the Mary and Martha is in Luke 10. And it comes after Jesus has sent his disciples out and told them really clearly to not take anything with them. It comes after Jesus has said a prayer of thanksgiving. It comes after, this is all in the same chapter, Jesus has made it really clear that the most important commandment is to love each other and to love God. And then there's the parable of the Good Samaritan. And I am a bit of a geek when it comes to scripture. And one of the reasons I did the degree that I did was because I just think, as the word of God, it's fascinating. And I think there's so much in the order that things are placed in, the choice of words that are used, where things are placed and where the meaning is. And if you ever, Graham has shared with us before that some people get a lot from just getting into the word, and I'm one of those people, and there's life in it, and I am going to be geeky and share some Greek with you shortly, but it's just there's so much in it. And I think that if we look at the story of Mary and Martha in the context of all that went before it, just in that chapter, Jesus has said, don't worry about stuff. Welcoming people is really important. Love is essential. And we need to be kind to everyone we meet. And the actions of service are really important. So then let's read these verses together. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me. But the Lord said to her, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all of these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about, and Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. Now, straight away, I go to, can you flip back a minute? Don't want to intimidate people with Greek words just yet. When you think about welcoming Christmas dinner, I don't know how many people you might have in your home. You might not have lots of people in your home. You might go to somebody's house for Christmas dinner. It's hectic. There's lots of different things happening all at once. You've got to time the meat, the potatoes, the vegetables, potentially the roast potato, potentially the pigs in blanket. I mean, pigs in blankets confuse me. And the timing of those, I always ask my other people to cook pigs in blankets. But it's just like, it's the very definition of plate spinning. And I don't know how you guys did it the other week, catering for so many people. I mean, it's a minefield. And when you have people come into your home that you care about and you love, you want to make an effort. You want it to look lovely. You want them to feel welcomed. You want to make them feel special. And so I can absolutely transport myself to being in Mary and Martha's house. The Messiah has just arrived. So if I was to tell you Jesus is coming for lunch, I would definitely double clean the toilet. Well, I would. And I would definitely be making sure the kids' toys were put away, and I'd try to scrub the handprints off the walls. But so you've got one of your really good friends coming in, someone you know you want to invest in your relationship with. I would be with Martha, and I would be going around the house, trying to make sure everything was right, trying to make sure that the roast potatoes didn't burn, and that I had remembered how to cook the pigs in blankets. Not that he would have necessarily eaten pigs in blankets, but that's a side point. But I think if but you can picture it, is what I'm saying, and you can potentially picture how they are feeling. And I also think we can probably imagine the conversations up and down the country when one person in the house is doing everything and somebody else is sitting doing nothing. And I challenge you to think of a time where maybe you haven't got a little bit grumpy that you're doing all the hard work while somebody is sitting there. So let's have a think about the fact that we've got Mary and Martha, good friends of Jesus. They know, Martha knows that he's the Messiah, or at least she's going to make that declaration later on. He's come into their home. And the reason why I went back to the Greek is because I just wanted to understand these words. Now, I can read the Greek. You can now click on Darren. I can't say it, so I'm not going to say any of these words. And I know that is going to look a little bit kind of not like it makes lots of sense to lots of people, but I just thought, right, let's just go back and let's dig into what these words mean. Because I might be the only person thinking that Martha was told off by Jesus for being too busy. I know that's not true because I opened my Bible app and the first description that was given, Martha, the one that was too busy to spend time with Jesus. Oh, that made me frustrated. So I thought, let me have a look at what Jesus said. And then this is my interpretation of those words. So I'm not a biblical scholar. If you click again, I went to the words, and this is to me what it is. Martha, Martha, your thoughts are so full of worry. They seem anxious. You seem troubled and disturbed about so many things, but you don't need to be. Your sister has found a good choice, and we're not going to take that from her. Now, to me, in that moment, Jesus isn't saying to Martha, you're too busy, come and spend time with me. He's saying, Martha, I can see you're really stressed and you've got really annoyed with your sister because she's not helping you. But do you know what? Actually, our relationship is more important than the quality of the dinner that you give me. And do you know what? It's absolutely okay that your sister said that she wants to come and spend time with me. And we're not going to take that away from her. We're not going to focus on your angst with your sister. What I want to do is to minister to you, to notice that you're feeling fretful, you're feeling really het up. And again, I can feel that, I can see that. When you're there and you're hosting and you've got so many things going on and you just want everything to be right, or in life, you want everything to be right in your week, and we're so caught up in all of it. It's not the busyness that Jesus is ministering to. It's not a telling off. He's saying to Martha, let's just cut through all of it. At the moment, you just seem a bit anxious. You seem a bit cloudy. You seem like you just need to just take a minute and come and be with me. And that is okay. And I wonder whether sometimes in the busyness of everything that we do in our lives, whether God is saying to us not be less busy. What he's saying is find moments of stillness with me in the middle of the busyness. Don't let your busyness result in anxiety. Don't let your busyness result in a mind full of worries about everything that's going on in the world. And if you could click on again, Darren, and then I'm hoping some images are just going to appear. Because when I read the word, I always say to myself, what is this telling me about Jesus? What is this telling me about who God is? I wonder if you need to click one more time. Oh, they've all appeared. And to me, what this is telling me is that Jesus wants to find us in our moments, and he wants to speak, and he wants to minister, and he wants to draw us to him. It isn't telling me that Jesus wants to tell me off and make me feel shame because of my busyness. What he's asking me and what he's telling me about who he is that even within that, he will help me find moments of quietness and stillness. And I wonder if there's a challenge in there to work out when are the moments when we're okay to stop and we're okay to notice those moments when God really wants to minister and to work. And I think this morning is a really good example of that. There was so much joy this morning, and we could have rushed through that. And I wonder if in a minute when we come to reflect together, whether we need to return to that place of joy. It's giving permission to notice what God is doing in the context of where we are. I feel like I'm always in a bit of a Martha season in my life. And maybe you are too. Maybe you're not. I think we learn something of Martha's character and Mary's character in those two stories. They're very different people. And Jesus loved both of them. He ministered to both of them in ways that they could understand. He drew both of them to him. He sees our heart and he calls us into a deep sense of connection with him. And we just need to look out for those moments. When I spoke, I can't remember when it was, a number of months ago now about Esther, I ended up with the word encounter. And I nearly started there this morning, but I felt like we needed to go on a bit of a meandering wander through first. But I ended up right back there. And the definition of encounter, when I put it in, it's not encounter as in you just kind of meet something. It's the idea of a direct personal meeting, potentially one that is significant, potentially one that is transformative. And I explored a little bit about the idea of connection bringing healing. And I want to pull on that thread a little bit as we move into the next phase of our service together. Because we need to allow space in our lives and we need to give ourselves time to encounter God and encounter Jesus in a real way. And we heard from Graham and we've heard from Tracy over the weeks and others about the different ways that can be, and different people will connect and encounter God in different situations. And yes, we're going to look at being contemplative together today, but there are so many different ways that encounter can happen, but we need to be open and we need to be willing. And I think part of what's come out for me over the last few weeks is the idea of being still and knowing that God is God, and in doing that we can really unpack and understand and dwell in who God is. Because it's because of who God is that we can make sense of who we are. It's because God is so brilliant and incredible or powerful or loving that we can take a moment. And one of the things that I have shared previously is the thought of having a jigsaw puzzle, and that we can pause. Martha could pause because Jesus could hold all of her pieces and he wasn't going to let any of them go. We can trust him with that. So when we feel that our brain is busy, it might not be physically busy, but I don't know, have you got a busy brain? There's so many things whirring around your brain, and if you stop, you might forget what you need to remember, what you might need to think about. But if you could click on again, Darren. The be still and know that I am God verse is in the middle of a psalm where the psalmist is talking about huge political conflict and war. And I would definitely encourage you to read Psalm 46, because this verse comes and it almost says just stop everything and just pause and just remember that God is God. God is who he says he is. Spend a moment just thinking about that and resting in that. And I don't know about you, but I click on the news and I want to click it straight off again because there's just so much going on in the world. But God is calling us, he's inviting us to just be still for a moment and remember that God is who he says he is, and he loves us, and we can trust him. So the final set of thoughts I just want to kind of finish with before I give over a little bit of time is touching on that idea of being fully present, because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to be still and I'm going to know that God is God. Okay, fine. And I had for a time a picture done by a local artist in my office at work at my previous school, and it had this Bible quote on the bottom. And schools are busy places, and the role I had was a very busy role, and I didn't tend to stop. And I would have lots of conversations with people, with students, and it was just non-stop. And I put it in my office, and every now and again I would shut the door and I would just stop completely, and I put it on the wall to remind myself that the idea of being fully present, not thinking about the to-do list, not thinking about anything else, was a really powerful thing to do. And I wanted to ask you two questions. Firstly, when was the last time you were fully present with God? Without thinking about what you're doing next. Without thinking about anything, really, but just fully present in that moment. And I also wonder, when was the last time somebody, a person, was fully present with you? Have you ever had those conversations with people where you can just tell, and it can feel a bit uncomfortable because it doesn't happen a lot, that you have their absolute, undivided, full attention. They're not listening to your words, working out what they're going to say in reply. They're just listening to you. It's magical. It is special. It is a moment that you cannot put into words unless you felt it. And I wonder who that last person was for you, or when maybe the last time you offered that to somebody else. And more years ago than I would like to admit, Carrie and I worked together with the youth, and we read a book called Contemplative Youth Ministry. And the main takeaway I got from the book was that our children and young people, more than anything, want us to be fully present with them, completely undistracted. And I don't think it was a coincidence. Do you want to click through the next set of images? I don't think it was a coincidence that when I was preparing the PowerPoint slides for this, my son kept coming up to me to ask me to look at his cardboard house that he was building. And it's because of the talk that I'm sharing with you today that I would stop and go and look at his cardboard house and then potentially get frustrated because I'd lost my train of thought and then I'd have to come back in again. But how many times do children, in particular, interrupt us at the most inconvenient moment? And how much time do we give them our undivided, complete attention? Because it is a gift. And if we don't give it to them as the adults in their lives, they're going to look for it elsewhere. Because that moment of genuine connection is absolutely everything. And when I think about, there's a lady that I work with, and she is a very busy person, but when a young person knocks on her door to share something with her, she shuts her laptop, she turns and faces them, and I've seen it so many times. She gives that young person her undivided attention. And they'll share something with her and she'll say, thank you for sharing that with me. I can see that's really hard for you and I'm sorry that's happened to you. Talk to me about it. And you can physically see a difference in that young person. It is the most incredible gift. And often the child doesn't need anything else to happen. They just needed that moment where that adult was fully present with them, came into their world and just listened. It wasn't about fixing it or anything, they were just listening. I'm not going to look at Lynette when I say this because she's probably going to cry. But there's something special that happens when you walk into Lynette's house. And when we arrive, She has the most magical ability. I'm going to cry now. She has the most magical ability, whatever she's doing, to make you feel so welcome. She'll stop what she's doing, or if she can't stop what she's doing because she's cooking dinner, she still just manages to give you her full attention and to have a conversation with you. And it makes you feel seen, it makes you feel valued, and it makes you feel loved. And that's just like my work colleague, when she has those conversations with those young people. I think everybody wants to feel that. They want to feel seen, they want to feel valued, they want to feel loved. That's what I want. And that's what God wants for us when we come into his presence. He wants us to feel those things. He wants that full, really key moment of connection. And now when I read the story of Mary and Martha, to me that's what he's saying to Martha. He's saying, come and be with me. I see you. I get that it's hard. I can see you've got nothing left in the tank and it's coming out in a real frustration with your sister, but just come and sit a while. I love you. I value you. It's not her actions that he is calling out, it is her caught up feelings, and he wants to be present with her in that moment. And that's why I feel that this morning, with some of the time that we've got left, I just want to offer you some time to just be with God in whatever way is most comfortable to you. And I haven't asked the band to play because I would like you guys to join us. But I'd like you to just take some time. And I don't know if you've ever been to potentially a Roman Catholic church or a high Anglican church, and you're able to go in and there's often no music, but there's just this unbelievable stillness. And it's very peaceful. And it's not necessarily about the quiet. It's about the availability of the space. And I felt really challenged as I've been working through this morning, and I do feel that God wants to say to you this morning, just come and spend some time and be fully present with me. Don't think about where you're going to be next. Don't think about the dinner. Don't think about the tea and coffee. We've got time now. And I might give a bit more time than feels comfortable because we're not very good at doing it, I don't think. I'm not very good at doing it. But I just want to give some space and some time before we potentially share if anybody's got anything to share. But I also don't want you to sit there thinking of something that you might want to share. That's not what this is about. This is about you and it's about God. And what I was going to suggest is that there are some candles down here and there's a big lighty stick so you don't burn your hands on the thing. If you want to come and light a candle, you're very welcome. There's a lot of me that doesn't want to break the stillness. I definitely feel that God, he wants to minister to us and take time with us wherever we are, whether we're a Martha person or a Mary person or a Dave person or a Barry person, however you are, however you feel, that God just wants to take time with you, to be present for you, to minister to you. And it's really important that we know we have permission to be still and to know that God is God, the most awesome, incredible God that we sang about this morning. He wants to bring joy and peace and healing and restoration and laughter and love into our lives so that we can share that with those around us for his glory. So that we can be present for those little people in our lives especially, so that they can know that they are cherished and that they are valued and that God loves them, that they are seen and they are precious and that they are a source of so much joy and frustration, but they are so much joy. I'm just going to finish my little section before handing over to Bob, just reading the poem, which you're welcome to take a copy of, because the last line is the one that's really spoken to me just now. Like the joy of the sea coming home to shore, May the relief of laughter rinse through your soul. As the wind loves to call things to dance, may your gravity be lightened by grace, like the dignity of moonlight restoring the earth. May your thoughts incline with reverence and respect. As water takes whichever shape it is in, so free may you be about who you become. As silence smiles on the other side of what is said, may your sense of irony bring perspective. As the time remains free from all that it frames, may your mind stay clear of all that it names. May your prayer of listening deepen enough to hear in the depths the laughter of God.